to Cody Talks NFL, presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here's your host, Cody Manning.
And welcome back to Cody Talks NFL. It's been a couple weeks since you guys heard from me. I had a great week last week in Mobile representing Blitzalytics. I hope I met you when we were out there. If you were there for the Senior Bowl, I know it can be pretty busy. A lot of people out there, but I did get to meet some of my Twitter followers. It was pretty great to meet some of you guys. Today's episode, it's going to be pretty quick. There was some news that came out this week, but this is just going to be a strictly Super Bowl preview. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually dive into the Super Bowl preview. We got the Chiefs going against the 49ers in Miami. I'm going to go ahead and start with the injury reports. It's pretty simple. Chiefs had full practice all week. They're going into this matchup fully healthy. Now, on the 49ers front, Quan Alexander has been limited with a pectoral injury. Tevin Coleman has been limited with a shoulder injury, and Jaquiski Tartt has been limited with a ribs injury. It came out yesterday. They are all three expected to go. That shouldn't be a surprise. It's the Super Bowl. It's the last game of the year. If guys are banged up, they're going to play. Obviously, Coleman has more of a question mark because he suffered a separated shoulder in the NFC Conference Championship game. But, I mean, even if it's in an emergency role, I totally expect him to suit up, even if he's like just there just in case guys like Raheem Mostert and Matt Breida can't give it a full go because maybe they suffer an injury during the game. Now, doing what I've been doing this whole playoffs, I'm going to look at both teams' offense and defense performance. Now, when you look at the offense for the Chiefs, they are fourth in scoring this year. They averaged 28.2 points per game. They had the 23rd ranked rushing attack. They averaged 98.1 yards per game, and they had the fifth best passing attack, averaging 281.1 yards per game. Now, looking at the KC defense, they are seventh in holding their opponents' scoring to only 19.2 points per game. Now, their weaker point, which might bite them in the butt in this game, they have the 26th ranked rush defense. They allow 128.2 yards per game, but they do have the eighth best passing defense, which they only allow 221.4 points per game. Now, looking at the 49ers offense, they're second in scoring. They average 29.9 points per game. They have the second best rushing attack. They get around 144.1 yards per game. And they rank 13th in their passing attack. They get around 237 yards per game. Now, their defense, they're right above KC. And their defense, they're eighth in holding their opponents to scoring to only 19.4 points per game. They have the 17th ranked rushing defense, allowing 112.6 yards per game. And they have the first best pass defense. Number one best pass defense they allow 169.2 yards per game. So it's basically like I will go ahead and steal it from anybody that listened to the Blitz breakdown preview of this week. I'll steal this from our CEO, Jack Bourgeois. Basically, you got a strength on strength and the weakness on weakness type of matchup going on right now in this Super Bowl. Now, I'm going to go ahead and kind of do a deep dive preview on these teams as well, kind of like head-on-head and who I think's better in the situation. I'm going to start, obviously, with the head coaches. You're looking at Andy Reid. Andy Reid has all the experience in the world. He's been to Super Bowls. Unfortunately, he just hasn't won a Super Bowl, but it's been 15 years since he was there with the Eagles back in the day with Donovan McNabb and T.O. and all them. And then you're looking at Kyle Shanahan. He's a young up-and-comer, the offensive guru, probably the best young mind in the game. And the last time he was there was as an offensive coordinator with the Falcons when they blew that the infamous 28-3 lead to the Patriots. So he does know what it's like to be in a big game. He knows what it's like to have a big lead, and I'm sure he'll probably want to learn his lessons and do a better job of controlling the clock if he ends up having a big lead on the Chiefs, especially when you got somebody like Patrick Mahomes and, the Andy Reid offense that can score within seconds. As far as who I think, I do think it's more of a push because I'm a big believer in Kyle Shanahan. I know Andy Reid is really good coming off when he has 2 weeks to prepare, but you can also start making an argument for Kyle Shanahan, right? I think they're both offensive geniuses that have had 2 weeks to prepare, fully study the other opponent's defenses. So I think it's a push. I really don't want to lean towards one or the other. Because I think they're both great coaches. I mean, I've been hearing players talk about Andy Reid, even as old as he is, has been drawing up new plays over the last 2 weeks. So I totally expect some sprinkles into the Kansas City offensive attack. But I also think that Kyle Shanahan's also doing the same thing. So it's a push for me. I think both coaches are great. And I can't wait for this matchup. You got the young buck versus you got the young stud versus the old buck in this matchup. So it's a push for me. Now let's talk about the quarterbacks. You got Patrick Mahomes, the growing legend of Patrick Mahomes, and then you got Jimmy Garoppolo. Where people still have questions about him. Now I had questions about him in the season. He had some games like the game against the Saints where he kind of answered those questions. I know people want to wonder if he's going to be able to get the job done. He only threw it, like 8 times last week, but there was no reason for him to do. He's about as close to a good game manager as you can ask out of a quarterback, just because as good of a game manager he is, he does have the capabilities to potentially be in a shootout, but I wouldn't necessarily trust that, right? Now, Patrick Mahomes, he can tear a defense apart. I know he's going to be going against guys like Richard Sherman in a very tough defense, but he can make any throw. I mean, obviously, you got to go Patrick Mahomes on the quarterback edge over here. He's the better quarterback. He can push the ball down the field. And if I had 1 minute on the clock left in this game and I asked which quarterback I wanted on the field to score, it's Patrick Mahomes. So that's a pretty simple win for me. And then you want to look at the running backs. The Chiefs, they have Damian Williams, LaShawn McCoy. Damian Williams has obviously been getting more of the push. And then the 49ers, they got Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, and then Tevin Coleman. I think this is more of a push for the running backs between both of them. Mostert's having, and don't get me wrong, Mostert's having an outstanding run in the playoffs right now. His game last week was outstanding, but I do give more credit to Kyle Shanahan's running scheme over the player in this, even though Mostert has been looking pretty great. But Damian Williams, he's been playing pretty great as well, too. I've kind of put those two guys in a similar tier of running backs, guys that are just excelling in the scheme that they are playing in right now. So it's more of a push for me, but I do give a slight edge to the 49ers just because they have more of a stable of running backs, right? So, if Mostert goes down, I think a guy even let's just say Tevin Coleman's healthy too. I think their 1-2 punch of Mostert and Coleman is better than McCoy and Williams. And if one of those guys go down, Matt Breida can step in and easily fill that role and easily get the yards in that scheme. The same thing with Jeffrey Wilson, their 4th running back on the roster. So I give the slight edge to the 49ers just because I trust those guys if injuries start to happen. If injuries start to happen on KC's side, I know they got Shady McCoy, but we really haven't seen the old Shady. And then if those two guys go down, I mean, as much as I was a lover of Darwin Thompson in the preseason, it's the Super Bowl. I don't know if he's going to be able to step up to the plate. So my slight edge to the 49ers in the running back group. Now, looking at the wide receivers for KC, they got Tyreek Hill. They got McCole Hardman, the blazing rookie, Sammy Watkins, Demarcus Robinson. All 4 of those guys have made plays throughout the season. And then you're looking at the 49ers wide receivers. They got Deebo Samuel, Emmanuel Sanders, Kendrick Bourne, and then Richie James. And then those are their 4 guys. I'm going obviously with the KC wide receivers, because Tyreek Hill, as great as Emmanuel Sanders has had a career, if you want to talk about this year, Tyreek Hill is the better wide receiver. McCole Hardman has really came on, and he's a great special team returner, so he offers that. I mean, who knows? Sammy Watkins had a good game last week, or 2 weeks ago. And, Sammy Watkins has the talent to take over a game. So that's why I'm leaning towards them. And Demarcus Robinson, he had some good games last year too. So if injuries happen, I trust the depth of the KC wide receiving core over the depth of the San Francisco wide receiving core. So I'm going KC with the better wide receivers on this one. And then if you look at the offensive lines, I lean towards the San Francisco just because I feel like they have more of a talent across. They have more of a better scheme that fits their offensive alignment. And KC's offense, I feel like they're kind of above, their offensive line's kind of above average, and I wouldn't be surprised if the front four of the San Francisco defense dominates them at some points of this game. Now, speaking of the front four of the defenses, I'll go ahead and get into that. With KC, they got some stars, right? They got Frank Clark and Chris Jones. Now, if Chris Jones can dominate the inside part of the line, while Frank Clark and a guy like Terrell Suggs can come on the outside, that can cause problems for Jimmy G all day. But San Francisco does have the more talented front line. I mean, they're all full of first rounders. You're talking about Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, Dee Ford, Solomon Thomas. So all four of those guys can win one-on-one matchups, especially against this Kansas City offense. I know Mitchell Schwartz, their right tackle for KC, is probably the best lineman on the Chiefs. So he will be able to somewhat contain one edge of the line, but I think I can see a guy like Eric Fisher struggling with a Dee Ford, struggling with a Nick Bosa throughout the game. And this is going to be probably the biggest key for the 49ers is their defensive line dominating the KC line. If they can, get pressure, and if they can get pressure up the middle, but if they can also converge on Mahomes without him leaving the pocket, because that's what tends to happen for KC is if Mahomes leaves the pocket and he can extend plays, that's where those big plays happen. So if they can get the pressure up the middle, don't let him get comfortable, and if Bosa and Ford can converge on him as fast as possible and do not let him come out of the pocket, I can see a scenario where they're bottling him up, frustrating him all game, and maybe they can force turnovers off him making fast decisions. But if they allow Mahomes to get outside the pocket and allow plays to develop, especially when they have speedy wide receivers with a McCole Hardman and a Tyreek Hill, it's going to be a long day for the San Francisco offense. Now, before I go into the linebackers, my brain just made me realize I forgot to talk about the tight ends, and we're talking about probably the two best tight ends in the NFL. Obviously, KC has Travis Kelce, and the San Francisco has George Kittle. I mean, you're talking about they're two different tight ends, right? Like Kelsey's like the first tight end, I think ever to have 4 straight seasons of 1,000 yards receiving. He can be the difference in this game. He can stretch the field. He can take advantage of the San Francisco offense if they're going to. San Francisco defenses are going to focus on the wide receivers. And then George Kittle, obviously, the guy can block. He can get the running game going for San Francisco. He's not asking for the ball. He'll take the ball when it comes to him, and he could easily, slip off of like a block on a play action, catch the ball, and take it 20, 40 yards for a big chunk play. They're kind of a wash to me just because I think they're both great players in their own right, and they're just two different types of tight ends that will have the ability to affect the game. And that's my apologies for moving on to the defense before I talked about the tight ends. But, yeah, I think both tight ends are great. I think they're both going to have an impact on this game because I do end up thinking this is going to be a high-scoring affair. But, yeah, to go ahead and get into the linebackers, Chiefs, that's probably their weakest point of the defense and why they probably have struggled against the run this year. They got Damian Wilson, Anthony Hitchens, and their linebacker core, and like Reggie Ragland. They're all right. They're not the best linebackers. And then, San Francisco's defense, they got playmakers on all level, right? They got Quan Alexander back from his injury, Fred Warner, and Dre Greenlaw. Those are some 3 great linebackers that are going to be able to contain guys like Damian Wilson. And they're going to be able to do their best to hold down Travis Kelce, but I don't know if they're really great in coverage, in my opinion. And I can see Kelce slipping on some routes on them and getting open for some big chunk plays. But if I had to pick who has a better linebacker core, it's a pretty easy saying that San Francisco has a way better linebacking core over the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, looking at the secondary, starting with Kansas City's secondary, they got obviously the Honey Badger. You can probably argue he's probably the best D-back in this game, with Richard Sherman being an older cornerback, even though he had a great year this year. I don't want to take anything away from Richard Sherman. He's one of the best corners in the game. But Tyrann Mathieu had a great year. He plays all over the field. He's so versatile. He has a way to impact this game, especially if he can. Jimmy G's suspect to throwing interceptions in the middle of the field. And I could totally see Tyrann Mathieu picking off a ball in the middle of the field and taking it back for a pick six. But yeah, they got Honey Badger, Daniel Sorensen. Obviously, he's probably the weaker point of the secondary. I know he made some key tackles against Tennessee, but he's the type of guy where Kyle Shanahan can try to find him on the field and take advantage of him. Bashard Breeland is a good corner, and Kendall Fuller is kind of good in the slot. I can see their cornerbacks, and Charvarius Ward, they're good. I can see them somewhat struggling with the San Francisco wide receivers, but I think they're good enough where they can contain them enough throughout the game. And then if you look at San Francisco, though, of course, I already talked about him. Richard Sherman's great. Emmanuel Mosley, Quan Williams as their corners, Akila Witherspoon, Jimmy Ward, and Jaquiski Tart. If I had to pick, honestly, as good as Honey Badger is, I'd rather take the San Francisco D-back group. They have, Richard Sherman's just brains can make everybody better involved, especially when it comes down to prepping for this game, breaking down the film. They're the number one pass defense this year for a reason. They can slow down a passing attack. Jaquiski Tart can come down and with the linebackers, and it's going to be interesting. I did maybe misspeak and say maybe Kelce can slip off the linebackers if they're going to try to cover him with a linebacker, but maybe they put like a Jimmy Ward or a Jaquiski Tart on him, somebody that's faster and that can maybe keep up with him. It'll be interesting to see how they attack Travis Kelce, because I think that's probably going to be the key for San Francisco. Is I think Travis Kelce is the guy they want to stop. Like, as great as you can bracket coverage a guy like Tyreek Hill, while keeping an eye on Mecole Hardman and trying to not let Sammy Watkins take over, because he can do that occasionally. But I think that they can figure out their plan for Travis Kelce. I think he's the X factor in this game, and as far as how the KC's going to attack the San Francisco's defense. So, but yeah, as far as all this, though, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of get into a breakdown how I see this going. Obviously, if you guys learned, I kind of like San Francisco as a whole, right? Because I only gave KC the better quarterback. I said they got the better wide receivers. Everything else was a wash as far as their head coach, their tight end. I gave the edge to San Francisco on the line. I gave the edge to San Francisco on the defensive front, the linebackers, and the D-backs. So, everything says they have the better team, and I truly do believe they have the better overall roster. I think if injuries happen, I think they have a deeper roster than KC. I don't think KC can afford to suffer any injuries in this matchup. But the thing with KC, they got Mahomes, and they got Andy Reid, and they got the more explosive playmakers. As far as how this game could go, I'll start with San Francisco, right? What's San Francisco's plan? As far as their offense, their best bet is they need the ball first, and they need to take their time. Kyle Shanahan's probably the best game scripter. You could probably bet that they're going to score on their first offensive drive, whether they get it to open the game or if they get it after KC opens the game. But when they get that, if they can get the ball to start the game, they can take their time, slowly get down the field and score. And then obviously their defense is going to try to get that ball back. They want to go up early as fast as possible, and just control the clock, keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. And again, too, when I talked about with their defensive front, keep Mahomes somewhat in the pocket, but unsettled in the pocket. Get that inside pass rush. Don't let him extend plays. Don't let Tyreek Hill run all over, because that's what happens is when he extends plays, he'll toss the ball up where he knows that Tyreek Hill or McCole Hardman can eventually catch up to that ball. And that's where they get those 50, 60, 70-yard touchdowns all the time. So keep him within the pocket, bottle him up, and don't be afraid to take chances on trying to get interceptions, trying to force the fumbles, maybe like a Nick Bosa strip sacks fumble. They need to try to win the turnover battle as far as their defensive front. And then, control the clock, and then take advantage of that weak rush defense of Kansas City. Get Mostert going. If Coleman is fully healthy and can be involved, get him going. And if he can't be involved, get Breida going as well. Get the run game going and just control the clock, get turnovers, and just try to leave that game with a big lead, or try to enter the fourth quarter with as big as lead as possible. And then KC, what they need to do is, if they can get the ball first as well, score quick. Try to stop that first drive of, like I said, I totally expect San Francisco to score on their first drive, because Kyle Shanahan is so good at game scripting. But if they can prevent that, right? If they can score first, go up 7-0, maybe they go hold San Francisco to a field goal, go up 7-3. Then they go up 14-3 or 14-0. If they can get up to a big early lead, I don't see that ending well for San Francisco, because, Jimmy G, as good as the game manager is, as good as he's able to be in a shootout, I think if they go up big and you're forced to abandon the running game of San Francisco, it's going to lead to an ugly game. I could see, if I don't see that scenario happening, which I'll get to here in a second with my game prediction, but I don't see that scenario happen. But if something happens where KC gets up to like a 14-0, a 14-3 lead, and like San Francisco can't score on that next possession, and KC can go up like 21-3, I could totally see KC running them out of the building. Now, I hope that doesn't happen from a fan aspect. I want this to be a great game. I want this to come down to the wire. But I can see a scenario where KC completely obliterates them because they take away the running game from San Francisco and they force them to be a pass-happy offense, which is not their personality for San Francisco. But getting to my game prediction, I think this is going to be a great game. I think you're going to see both offenses shine throughout the game. I think you're going to see both defenses shine. I think, like I talked about, I could see a Honey Badger pick six, but I can also see a Nick Bosa strip sack fumble and somebody picks it up for a touchdown. I think both defenses are going to make a play. I think this is going to come down to the wire. I think this is going to come down to whoever has the ball last. And guess what? Patrick Mahomes doesn't need a lot of time, whether it's 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whether it's 30 seconds. Those Chiefs can score within seconds. So I just told you who I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Andy Reid to win his first Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes will have the ball last. They're going to be down 31-28, and they're going to score a walk-off touchdown to end the game. They win 35-31. Kansas City gets their first championship in 50 years. Andy Reid finally gets that monkey off his back, and the legend of Mahomes begins. I'm picking Kansas City just because they're more explosive, and I think if as long as they're within a score of the game, they're going to have a chance. The only way I can really see that not happening is, like I said, if San Francisco can just control the clock, score every time they have the ball, force Kansas City in mistakes, and they have a big lead entering the fourth quarter, that's where I can see them easily winning. And who knows, maybe they do stop a Mahomes in the last 2 minutes, but if Mahomes has that ball and he's within a touchdown to win the game, I'm taking Mahomes all day. So that's my prediction. I got the Chiefs winning 35-31 on a walk-off Mahomes touchdown. And so that's basically the episode. Like I said, guys, it's just basically going to be a Super Bowl preview. When I get to these off-season episodes, I think my first few off-season episodes, I'm going to probably break down every division and talk about those teams, talk about where their roster is, where I could see them going in free agency, and all that. And then, of course, we got the end of my episode with the Rob question of the week. With the NFL season almost wrapped up, we have the Combine to look forward to. Other than hanging out with the coolest dude ever, Rob, what do I look forward to the most at the Combine? Obviously, outside hanging out with the Rob, right? And the rest of the Blitz team members. Don't want to forget about them. I just enjoy being in Indy just because Indy's kind of a cool city. If nobody's ever been there, I always suggest to go to. You never know who you're going to see when you're in Indy. I know when we were, for example, if you guys want a quick story, the place we stayed at was like this kind of like apartment loft thing in downtown Indy. And everything's within walkable distance for the Combine if you stay downtown. And, I remember a few of us from the Blitz team went to go grab lunch one day. And as soon as we walk out, Bill O'Brien and Doug Marone are walking out of a bar together. You know what I'm saying? And have a conversation. You never know who you're going to run into. If you go out to the steak bars around there, we are at the Prime. I don't want to expose any names, but let's just say there was NFL GMs, former NFL players, agents at this bar we were at. So you never know who you're going to run to, conversations that you could have, networking opportunities. So that's what I'm probably looking forward to the most. But I'm also looking forward because, we'll be out there creating content for you guys and, growing the Blitzalytics brand name. Other than that, guys, if you like what you heard today, please hit the like button. Even if you're a San Francisco 49ers fan, please hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget, though, this audio version of Cody Talks NFL is always over at the Blitzalytics Podcast Network. We're basically on most major podcast platforms. Just search Blitzalytics Podcast Network, and you'll be able to find us. We have the Blitz breakdown over there. And we also have like the Pick Six. I know the XFL files will be coming up here shortly with the XFL season. And we should eventually have more podcasts on there as well for you guys. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. I hope you enjoy the Super Bowl Sunday. Be safe. You're going to be drinking a lot. But have a great Sunday. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys here in the near future. Blitz out.
Thank you for watching Cody Talks NFL, presented by Blitzalytics.com. As always, hit that like and subscribe button, and then hit that bell notification icon to stay up to date on all things football.